how to work with the SANAT Kumara. Today, we are discussing the practical aspects of working with the SANAT Kumara. Welcome, everyone. Martina and Charles are here to explore what it takes to serve as an ambassador of light in these transitioning years from the third dimension concept to the emerging fifth dimension collaborations by the year 2030. Martina, in the last episode, we discussed the different tasks of the SANAT Kumara. How does that translate to the practical aspects of working with him, her, they in general, this higher being?
Yeah, let me be systematic here. So what we learned is he is in a leadership role. And he's helping us to make the transition into a fifth dimensional life. So what does that mean if we work for and with him? It's either a leadership role, as he is a leader, and or it's a role of bringing in new information that people don't have yet, or teaching the information that people don't have yet. And then there is another aspect. You can work with the SANAT Kumara still on an individual basis if you are neither of these. If your task is to give a specific aspect of the new information and the new teaching a practical expression in your life. That's the best way I can explain it.
Okay.
So let's get practical. Charles,
okay.
You come out of a leadership position in your third dimensional career.
Yeah.
I come out of a leadership position in a third dimensional career. We've both worked as scientists. We find new knowledge, bring new knowledge, teach new knowledge. That is normal to us.
Yes.
So giving this task to us, you can explain, we have been prepped, so to speak, for decades to fill in the role we have now. If you have never had a leadership position in your life or dug up new information and learned how to present that, it's highly unlikely that the SANAT Kumara will call you into a position now. But you can still be called into working with him if you implement the knowledge that he provides. You have to make sure I've understood that very well. Okay. That's your responsibility then.
Yeah. Okay. So, Martina, I'm summarizing what you're saying as this is time for leading the world, the earth, into a new place.
Yes.
And we are called in to help the SANAT Kumara as bodies on the third dimension world to move things forward. And others are here to also apply the new knowledge so that it gets through the world completely. So is that correct?
That's the perfect understanding from what I know.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't matter where you are now. You just have to make sure I understand fully where we are going, what he wants to achieve. That's why he provided us with Namas University. And then be sure that you implement what is needed and not what your ego wants or your fear patterns want. Charles, let me ask. So the SANAT Kumara has over decades or hundreds of years channeled messages to people and then learned that the accuracy of that is maybe not so good. So he decided to walk into people, which means the soul of an individual partially moves aside for the SANAT Kumara soul to walk in. How did you become a walk-in of the SANAT Kumara?
Well, That's interesting from last episode. You remember when I said that the SANAT Kumara is insistent and gets his way. I'll give one quick example. It wasn't about maybe 8 months ago now that I was on a trip somewhere out in Texas. I was part of the Namas University co-teaching team, and I have my other friends, gods and goddesses, energy that walk through me, but not specifically the Sanat Kumara. So I was kind of minding my own business one day in a hotel room, and maybe I was tired, 8 p.m. ish. So this energy came through and said to me that I should get ready to write something down for the Sanat Kumara. Said you will receive information. Well, I'm familiar with the Sanat Kumara from our Namas team, but wasn't expected that. So I brushed that off and went to sleep. The 3 a.m. the next morning, no, I'll go back. So the voice said, keep a pen and paper by your bedside. I've been keeping spiritual diaries of my dreams and etheric journeys for over 40 years, so it wasn't anything new for me. And then I put my book, I put a pen ready. I didn't know it was the Sanat Kumara at this point. So the following day, 3 a.m., I was awakened and commanded to write. Get up and write.
I know that kind of thing, yes.
So, not being in the Akashic Records, which is just my most comfortable place to write from, I said, okay. I turned the page to the book to the very last page because I didn't know what this was about. It wasn't something I want to keep chronological order of. And then the message just poured through. And I'm still doubting myself. I said, who's this? As I was ending the message, the pen moved automatically to write TSK. TSK is our nickname for the Sanat Kumara. So, and I checked with you, and you said that was correct. And so I said, okay. Now, fast forward maybe another 2 months from there, I was in the Akashic record, and I get this energy, and I asked the question. I said, are you the Sanat Kumara? Are you walking into me? Because then I had no inkling about him trying to walk into me. And he said, yes. Of course, I didn't check with you. I didn't even mention it to anybody because it was one of those things I would write down. And then, out of the blue, you send me a note that the Sanat Kumara wants to walk into me. And I was smiling because I actually had to go back and show you on the page where it was written. So that's how I started to work with Sanat Kumara, and it's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Martina, how about you? How did you?
Well, I told last time a bit how it started. Maybe I'll add how that practically works today.
Yeah.
First of all, in Namas University, for the first 1.5 years, I was alone. And I always said there needs to be more people with different backgrounds to assist in this. Secondly, why? This is a huge responsibility to putting out new knowledge and teaching people. And that means I felt, even though he walked into me, that there is a need for constant cross-checking.
Yeah.
And Charles, you know that when something comes through, we pass it around, we cross-check with each other, not to pat ourselves and say, great,
Yeah.
but to get another aspect that we have might missed or misunderstood, simply because this is such a huge responsibility. And if you compare that to a third dimensional approach where people claim, I'm the only one and I'm the greatest, we are the polar opposite of this working for him. We really cherish being colleagues and helping and supporting. And every cross check we put out, hoping for additional information to get the picture complete. I can share that usually I wake up between 3 and 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And pen and paper next to bed is absolutely normal. Absolutely normal. And usually during that time of the day, I get what's the work at hand today. Yes,
Okay.
I have an idea what I intended to do
Mm.
today, but most of the time, yeah, that doesn't materialize quite as such. Something happens, a message comes in from a colleague, something happened, we need to cross check, do other things, work on projects. Become highly flexible in your approach, know from him where we are going together,
Yeah.
be highly disciplined. I mean, all of the colleagues who work for Shambhala beings from the Shambhala Unity Council on a day to day basis, that is a life commitment, and they're willing to do anything to make that happen for the benefit of planet and people.
Yeah. It's a huge task, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Charles, what are the key characteristics working together from your point of view?
Yes, as you said, it is receiving new knowledge for the fifth dimension Earth. We are going in uncharted territories as every knowledge that was developed under the masculine directed third dimension Earth is no longer relevant. And we need to work on bridging that information gap to show people the road doesn't drop off, there's continuity, but balanced with the divine feminine energy, things will look different.
Yeah.
So we work on the podcast as we receive the messages and provide the knowledge. But other than that, there's a lot of energy work that is done by different teams of the Namas University across the world, where we're cleaning up energetic sites, and bringing in the light from across the universe, anchoring light to the earth. So team members receive informations, and it's already said we do the cross-checking. We are the trusted confidant of our co-teachers. In the past iteration of the third dimension hierarchical top-down situation, they were called master teachers. They don't like that name because they know that we are co-equal creators of this new fifth dimension Earth. So we have this work that we are doing, SANAT Kumara, the orchestrator, and the forefront, and every other Shambhala Unity Council being, plus our intergalactic friends who have now hitched their ride with our ride. So we have been admitted into this intergalactic federation, which is something that the Earth had needed sorely for many thousands of years. So we are at that point this time. So all people on Earth are here now to help Amaya sustain the fifth dimension level vibration that we have on. So here, these are the major things that we do for the Namas University.
Let me ask you, what did it take for you to settle into that kind of working life?
Settle in. I'm not sure I'm
Okay,
quite
you haven't
settled.
settled in yet.
I haven't quite settled in yet. It's a transition too for me, and the fast pace of work from our co-teachers who are not in the physical plane. I think they forget that we we are on the physical plane. So the demand keeps coming, and like you said, you may start up with one project, and before you know it, you've been directed to another project. That's extreme flexibility and lightheartedness is needed, and getting off all our third dimension goals and plans. I definitely was trained very well by my spiritual school that prepared me for work at this level, because we've also worked with off-it allies in the past, and they don't mess around, they don't joke.
They're comfortable. And I would add that just here in the third dimension, I mean, when my day starts at 3 or 4 a.m., it starts with colleagues in Asia who are already 8 hours longer on their feet,
Yeah.
and messages have been coming in.
Yes.
And usually I'm gutsy enough as of 6 a.m. my time, I shoot out messages to North America, right?
Yeah. And I
So,
get those because I'm up early.
so that is a normal. Also, the fact amongst the whole team members, we communicate in English, which is, as everybody will hear, not my native language. We only, in fact, have two native English speakers. All of us have to use English and other languages in order to communicate. And that doesn't mean Google Translate. It really means learning the language, because when you learn a language, you also learn the culture and thereby help really to integrate and understand why a colleague you interact with acts so totally different than you do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that those who come to work with us must have, that flexibility and humility to understand that everybody means well, but communication is a barrier. For me, I have to translate what I hear first to my Igbo language, and then before I try to interpret it into English, which is a second language, and the translation is never direct. And English language being very nebulous in its nature, one word could have different interpretations or definitions. So, but we work through that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why also the Sanat Kumara started in 2024 to have his team bring out a book with the stories and the work they did together with him. In 2024, the book is called Awakening. And now for 2025, we prepare a book by the title of Rise. But not all team members made it into 2025 because either they didn't have the flexibility, or they were too much bound to a third dimensional perspective, or one just recently got ego inflated.
Yeah, I was reading the Awakening 2024 book, and actually, I'm going to quote here that the Sanat Kumara anticipated everything that happened, and I'm quoting from his words now. I had walked into more than six who could potentially work with me. I realized that not all of them would find the courage to leave their worldview and lives that they were accustomed to for a life with me. So he didn't call people or walk into people expecting them to, be successful. I expect a great deal of flexibility and a willingness to make sacrifices. And this is really very important for people who he calls going forward to understand this. Some were unable to overcome their existential fears, ambitions, and egos. So I stepped out of them and again handed them back to their familiar world and soul. So this is really very instructive to me, and I try to remind our team members that, I believe it's said in the Bible, many are called and few are chosen. And
Yeah.
it's still the same thing here with working with the Sanat Kumara.
Well, for example, I constantly receive emails from people saying, "Oh, the Sanat Kumara contacted me and I'm supposed to play a role at Namas University." And if that happens, usually two things are immediate. His reaction, is that true or not?
Uh-huh.
And also my reaction to say, "Great, dear, please tell me more. What exactly did the Sanat Kumara tell you?
Okay.
Did you write that message down?" First of all, they never wrote that down. Secondly, with most of them, it gets very fluffy.
Yeah.
It either then says, not as initially the Sanat Kumara told me, but it's, "Oh, I felt him." And I felt pushed towards Namas University, or it was always my dream to work for the Sanat Kumara. So here the ego kicks in, or people want to work with him because the the clear understanding of when is the head talking blah blah cinema
Yeah.
and when is your heart absolutely pure, because the latter will then send you a message. This ain't gonna be a walk in the park, and you can't stay the way you are and can't do as you have done so far. You
Okay.
really have to give up who you were
Yeah.
for a very large part.
True. True. Yeah. So I want to add, Martina, um, message that I received recently from the SANAT Kumara and some of the things I'm taking away from it. When the SANAT Kumara said that the team will continue to form, so more people are going to come in and reform, which might mean more people would also drop out of the team. There's no guessing work here. He said this is a natural process even in Shambhala Unity Council
Yeah.
and the Intergalactic Confederation. Freedom in and freedom out.
Yes.
Creating, co creating, combining, refining. This is a creation, a living thing. From this, I understood the nature of co creation myself in the fifth dimension. And so, what I learned is that we are all working on a divine plan. And this divine plan, like you said in the previous episode, is our soul mission, something we signed up for before we actually came to the earth this time around.
Yeah.
So, and this project is to bring light to the earth. Let there be light, as Yeshua says. So all co-creators are co-equals. Whether you are in the etheric realm, Shambhala Unity Council, Intergalactic Council, we are all co-equals. And we work together as such. Each team member contributes their best. And there is no head or boss who's going to be breathing down on somebody's neck, say, do this or do that. And also, there's no paymaster that's going to give you funds to do this and that. And that becomes a challenge for many people, because when they join institutions, they think that, oh, there's somebody with a pot of money who is going to be paying them off. And this is really working and co-creating with the Sanat Kumara. So it's something that someone has to look quite into their soul, hear the message, hear the soul, and step in to be part of bringing light to our earth, especially in these crucial moments. So I want to ask you, Martina, what advice would you give to others? You've already talked about people who come to you wanting to work with the Sanat Kumara. So what are the advice you want to give? And maybe that's enough. You can recap after that.
I would say if you hear something clearly and not in your head, in your heart, write it down. Stay patient and wait if it comes again. Then ask yourself, am I really ready to give that commitment? There is no accolades involved in this. There is no glory involved in this. This is a lot of hard work where the Sanat Kumara, his colleagues in Shambhala, the colleagues in Namas University, they rely on you giving your best each day. And if you can't simply, like you could do in a company or you work in an administration, say, today, I'm not really in the mood. That is not of this place.
Yeah,
This is not of this energy. You have to give your all and you have to give it every day.
definitely. Yeah, thank you,
So
Martina. Yeah, go
if
ahead.
you hear, then hear a couple of times, turn to us for cross-checking. That is welcome. But be aware, he's not just coming in and saying, oh, I'm going to help you to make your business wonderful.
Yeah,
Nope.
yeah,
It's about him, the up-to-date divine plan for planet Earth and the well-being of planet and all life who calls this planet home. So it has nothing to do with this third dimensional perspective.
Yes, thank you. That is important to reiterate that this is light work.
Yeah.
It's not anything other than the work of lifting a Maya that's already lifted, but lifting every kingdom on earth into this light that we are all experiencing now.
Let us finish by saying it would be good next time if we talk more detail on why Namas University was created by the Sanat Kumara and the Shambhala Unity Council, why it is so different from everything spiritual organization that has been or is working on planet Earth so far, and why it is really useful to follow.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Martina. I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Me too, dear. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Bye,
thank you.
everyone. See you
Bye,
next week.
everyone.
Bye
See you
bye.
next week. Bye bye.